I'm actually rewiring people based on their DNA. I can look at their DNA, I can see where the gaps are, I can see what their accentuations are, and where we try to get this person to perform better. Most people think dopamine is the reward. It's not the reward. Dopamine is the distance between now to the reward. It's the gap. Most mindset is about just thinking positive. I'm not interested in thinking positive. Positive thinking leads to depression. I'm not interested in that. In order to optimize your life as an entrepreneur, you have to optimize yourself with your code, with your specific thing, with your health, your diet, your sleep. If you want to build the company that you say you do at the level you do, then those things have to get optimized.
Alok Trivedi, aka Dr. Rewire, welcome to the studio.
Oh, thanks for having me. I appreciate it, man.
So you're in town for Dave Asprey's biohacking event because you're speaking there tomorrow. You have helped 500,000 people plus reprogram beliefs that are blocking performance. This goes from athletes to very successful entrepreneurs. And I like the construct of the whole thing because part of your edge is no hype. Mm-hmm. We're doing this based on neuroscience, and this is actually what you need to do to change your performance.
100%.
Let's start with the basics. What does rewiring actually mean?
Rewiring is about taking your beliefs, balancing them so that you can up-level your performance levels. It's really simple as turning the brain back on areas that stopped. So every time we have a belief, a limitation, a thought, an emotion that in essence is preventing us from actually growing and living our life, we're creating an impedance in our brain. So what we do is I come along and we have programs in that to help rewire the brain where we remove these beliefs and transcend them without crazy years of therapy, tapping, all these different types of modalities. It's literally, you can do this in minutes at some point.
So I, as a historically very disciplined person that has done a bunch of crazy shit, I lean in the direction of just just go fucking do your shit.
Sure.
Just go do it.
Yeah.
Pragmatically, what is the process of rewiring versus hey man, just go do it. You said you were going to do it.
Yeah, it's really interesting, right? Over the years now, after 500,000-600,000 people now, I've developed this brain DNA test, right? And just kind of go there just for a second, because a lot of entrepreneurs don't realize that they're wired for entrepreneurship. So someone like you says, I don't understand what the difficulty is. I don't understand why this is hard. Just, you say you're going to go do something, go do it. But it's not because that you have more self-discipline. It's not because you are, because you have more willpower. It's literally because the way that your brain is designed with your genes. If you asked me 10 years ago, I would have said the same thing you did, Brad. But now with all of these case studies, and now looking at DNA samples and looking at people's brains, I'm realizing that, some people are wired for entrepreneurship and some people really aren't. And some people are wired as connectors and some people aren't. Some people are wired as people who are better operators in the business and some people aren't. And now realizing that it's kind of we each have our lane inside of us. Our DNA has given us a lane. So sure, you can go rewire, but is that rewiring going to actually get you to do something? I don't necessarily get you to do what it is you think you're going to force yourself to do. Not necessarily so, because if your DNA is saying, hey, look, go do it, go after it, go crush it, you'll go do that. But someone else's may not do that. So they're going to have obstacles no matter what you do.
So is the premise of rewiring taking the existing DNA structure and saying, no, I do want this outcome. Let me reprogram what I was predispositioned for to be able to get the outcome?
I can now do that. Yes. It's really interesting. And we're right into it, less than 5 minutes. I don't think we're gonna go here that fast, but yeah, I mean, now I'm rewiring.
Let's fucking go.
Yeah, let's go. Right now I'm actually rewiring people based on their DNA. And I can look at their DNA. I can see where the gaps are. I can see where their accentuations are, and where we try to get this person to perform better. And perform is it's a big loose term, but just get over your obstacles to do more of what you want. Let's just call it that, right?
Yeah.
And that could be in athletics, could be in business, could be in a relation, whatever you want to call it. But let's just say do more of what you want. Yeah, you can now get yourself to do that. I can wire your brain to create that based on your DNA today.
Most of me hears that and I'm like, that sounds like some fluffy bullshit. Talk to me about the practical approach of that. So let's assume for a moment that the DNA test gives you these results that allows you to analyze a person.
Yeah.
And you say, hey, I see that who you are has you predisposed to behave this way. Yep. And I think that there's a general consensus that there's a lot of truth to that. What are the steps that you take to rewire somebody?
It really depends on the case. Depends on what they have going on. Let me use entrepreneurs as an example here. So entrepreneurs typically have, and I'll go sciencey here just to
Love it.
right? Just like the genes that we test is MAOA. We're looking at COMT. We're looking at MAOB. We're looking at DRD. These are all factors that are holding on to dopamine and excitement and motivation. Okay, so what happens is that an entrepreneur typically will clear through those neurotransmitters, those chemicals, really fast. So they need more excitement. They need more discipline. They need more their juice from the outside to make them whole. Versus someone who doesn't will pretty much be pretty steady. They'll be able to pretty much not need those things, so they won't push the same way. You or I would sit and say, you said something, you're going to go do something, go do it, get it done. Completely right, because you probably have a COMT gene break, you probably have an MAOB that is decreasing, so your dopamine level drops off and you need stimulation. So we seek reward more than someone who doesn't. So an entrepreneur is a reward-seeking human being by far. Here's the crazy thing about it. Now, after looking at these DNA results, what I'm finding is that these people who are also reward seekers are also correlated, and I'm seeing are also at the same place of addictions.
I believe that entirely.
Completely.
Yep.
And what they've done is been able to transfer one addiction of drugs or whatever that addiction is into another form that's, let's call it healthier, but it's not healthier. Now we have work addictions, we have family, like all these things that come along. We're late, but it's just an immense drive to go after it. And that's programmed in the DNA.
Yeah, I know a phenomenal amount of entrepreneurs, crazy endurance athletes, super high performers that also snap very hard in the other direction with alcohol and drugs.
Yeah.
And I think it's exactly what you just said, which is a addictive personality.
Correct.
And said another way, you could be genetically predispositioned to that. So what does the rewiring process look like for that particular use case?
Well, for that person, first thing I got to do is I got to find out where they're at in that cycle, right? I got to see what the actual DNA is. But the one thing I have to get them to do is that they're going to be so addicted to a morning routine is that depending on that, they probably need good dopamine strikes in the morning, but their evening routine is going to dictate their performance because it's all in balance of one another. But most people think that I'm going to do more for the morning and then the evening, screw off, it doesn't matter. Your dopamine production for the next day begins at night. So people think, oh, I don't have to worry about it until the next day. It's a whole new day. No, your dopamine production actually begins the night before and sets you up with the serotonin and the recovery so that you actually set up for the next day. So that being the case, what I'm going to look at someone and say first thing in the morning, you're going to be addicted and want to go hunt. You're going to want to prowl. It's the worst thing you could do. I'm going to say, let's temper that. I want to temper that dopamine drive because that dopamine is going to create stress in the system. And you're going to keep needing that. So I'm going to sit and say, take your 10 biggest or 5 biggest challenges of the day and say, let's take that and then find what are the benefits to those challenges. How does those challenges help you and your company? So first off, I ground your brain into gratitude before you begin the day. Because ultimately, rewiring is about bringing back the brain balance that is where you really perform. But when we go either side too hard, both sympathetic or parasympathetic, we imbalance our brain.
You know, any given Tuesday, I go home and I drink 100 proof bourbon until 10 p.m. and then stare at my iPad until 10:30, then go to sleep. That's probably the right way to prime for the next day, right?
Probably not. Probably not.
What are the things that you absolutely want to stay away from the night before?
I would tell you that you don't want to hear this, and the entrepreneurs are not going to want to hear this. But alcohol, I'd stay away from as much as possible if you're trying to prime for the next day.
Yeah.
Right? It just is. It's a neurotoxin. Your brain doesn't process. You don't get into REM sleep. You don't get into the second phase of delta sleep. And so what happens is your brain doesn't get ready to perform the next day. We now know enough. And I'm not the guy who's going to say never have a drink. That's not, I mean, you and I have hung out. Like that's not true at all.
Right.
But for me, there's a time and a place.
Yeah.
And I'm very good about that time and that place. Right. I used to be the guy that said, it's Wednesday night. It's guys' night. You go to the bar. Yep. It's Wednesday. You got to drink. But as I've learned more, Wednesday's not enough of a reason for me. Mm-hmm. Even going out is not enough of a reason. Even, someone's birthday is not enough of a reason. It's got to be something that I cognitively sit and say, okay, I want to now. And then I make that choice. But I would say if you are priming the evening before, 8 p.m., shut all the technology down. It's super important to do that.
If you're going to bed when?
About 10.
Okay.
Yeah. I would say 10 o'clock is the normal sleep cycle. People are going to sit and say, entrepreneurs, I lay in bed. I can't go to bed at night. My brain's wired. I get it. That's because of the COMT gene. Because your brain is firing nonstop. It's like you have 100 tabs on in your brain and you're like, I got to do this and this and this and this and this and this. If you're that person, I would tell you, make sure you take all of those things and dump them on a piece of paper and get them out of your head onto paper. One of the most important things I tell people, right? Also, you want a couple supplements you want to add in is like L-theanine. Some melatonin can help you with that. GABA is a tremendously powered neurotransmitter for someone like that to be able to got to calm the nervous system down. The whole thing we're looking for, Brad, is what I call neuroflexibility. The ability to go from your sympathetic to parasympathetic easily. Sympathetic to parasympathetic easily. The more you can do that, I don't have any studies to back me up, but I'm going to propose that the longer longevity you'll have.
Interesting. So basically take yourself into or out of state. I mean that if you find yourself in a certain, you said sympathetic to parasympathetic, right?
Sure.
What I heard was if you are finding yourself in a amped up state or a relaxed state, have the ability to pull yourself from one to the other.
Yeah, naturally. Not where you even have to do it cognitively, that the body does it on its own.
So you just said naturally, but then we also talked about L-theanine, GABA, melatonin to help you sleep. How do you feel about introducing substances like that to induce sleep or relaxation versus the capacity for your body to do it independently? I
would rather your body can do it independently if you can, but if you can't, then you would definitely using those supplements is better than using it. Before you use any medications or drugs, I would rather use a supplement for sure.
Yeah.
But some people's brains won't calm down, right? And we also got to think about all these lights that we have, all the technology, that all plays into our nervous system too.
Yeah.
We didn't have that before. Right? This has all been the advent in the last 20, 30, 40 years that this has come along. So our systems are overstimulated on a constant basis. So to be able to sit and say, allow it to naturally fall, some people have that ability. I fortunately do. My head hits a pillow, 9:45, I'm done, I'm out, I will see you at 6 a.m. 72% of Americans don't deal with that. 72% of Americans deal with some sort of sleep issue. It could be their brain dysfunction for sure. Could be sleep apnea, could be weight, could be stress. But all of these things come starting, the brain balances all that.
Right. Well, I think that's the underpinning of the conversation is how do you change that? And do you change that? So I will say I have historically been a terrible sleeper.
Okay.
And I have come to the point of seeing that there is nothing more detrimental to my day than lack of sleep.
100%.
And so that has brought me to this place of I would rather take a supplement to sedate myself functionally, and supplement or drug, something to fucking knock me out to make sure that I can perform tomorrow than to just struggle through and run the risk of not sleeping. How do you recondition that? Or what's the beginning of rewiring that?
That's
that
a great question. I agree with you on all of that. So if we look at the rewiring process, right, your brain is set up into three fragments. I'll simplify it from this standpoint. You have the amygdala, you have the hypothalamus, and the prefrontal cortex. Okay, we'll just keep it as those three. The more emotional we are, the more stressed we are, the more we're in our amygdala. The more objective we are as leaders, entrepreneurs, we need our brains to be from the prefrontal cortex. The hypothalamus is the link that connects the amygdala to the prefrontal cortex. So the days that you have more stress and you're more focused on the things that are going on in life, good or bad, you're going to be more in your amygdala. That's going to ramp your sympathetic nervous system. That's going to keep you firing more. And so your body won't calm down as easily. So the rewiring process, first thing you got to do is you got to isolate what's the things that are causing me the stress, right? Is it happy stress or negative stress? I have a term that I've used. I call it a root experience, because a root experience tells me that something has happened that you think is bad. Most people, when they think of a trauma, they think, oh, this negative thing happened. Well, I've also coined a term called a positive trauma, because something can be super exciting and super good, but also you can't sleep. I'll give you an example, right? Think about it when you're a kid and you're going to, Disney World the next day. You can't go to bed. You're amped up. You're ready to go. That's your dopamine firing away, right? And your dopamine is keeping you awake. Then at night, when you get stressed and you have this bad news or a bad day, that's your epinephrine and norepinephrine keeping you awake. Both of those, all of those are called catecholamines. And those are the stress neurotransmitters. Those are the things that prevent you from actually being able to shut the body down and move into the parasympathetic, whether you're too excited about something or too pissed off about something. Both of them are interconnected. So I would say first thing you got to understand is that rewire. What is it that's causing you the stress? I'm telling you, there's no power. And I'm not a big journaler, so I'm not into journaling. Just write your emotions, and that's cool at some level, but just write down what's on your mind. If you're an 8-figure entrepreneur, you don't care to journal as much. You're like, okay, I got this to do. I got a lot to do. Write it down. Write it down on a piece of paper or on your notebook and get it out of your head. Because if it's here, it's just ruminating. Then once it's out of your head, try going to sleep at that point in time. I bet you're probably going to see a 30 to 50% difference just by doing that simple task.
Yeah, I think that, first of all, I think that just actually doing the things that we have been told that we should do, probably a productive first step.
Probably.
There's a whole litany of things that I'm like, yeah, I know that that's what I'm supposed to do. No screens before bed, yada, yada, blah, blah, blah. I want to look at my fucking iPad before I go to sleep. What are the shortcuts? Are there shortcuts to this? So like one, I would look at, melatonin, GABA, L-theanine as shortcuts. What are the other shortcuts to make sure that you set yourself up in the morning? And all this, by the way, is this one item that we're talking about, which is sleep.
Yeah.
And there are a million other things to rewire, to reprogram,
for sure,
belief systems that you should address. But from the sleep perspective, what are the other biohacks? Since you are here at the biohacking conference.
Yeah, absolutely. And everyone probably knows this. If you don't know this, when you first get up in the morning, get sunlight first thing in your eyes. That first set in your eyes, when you get that sets your body for the circadian rhythm for the day. So it's essentially so important. The first thing in the morning, get that. So the body knows, 14 hours from now, I got to shut this thing down. But if you get up and you're in a dark room and you just stay there and you don't move and then you go out at noon, the body says, now it's sunlight. The circadian rhythm changes because of that. So the first thing, do your duties in the morning and then get outside and put your eyes directly, like with grace, of course, right? Directly in your sun. But I look right at it. I'm like, here you go. I'm looking right at it. And I'm like, squinting away. But I'll do that for about 3-4 minutes. Look away, come back. But I'll do that for 3-4 minutes to set the tone for my sleep. 2, I would tell you, this is super important. Most of your entrepreneurs are already doing this, but I'll say this anyways, is exercise. Entrepreneurs, I'll tell you, we're so good. And I don't put myself in this class. We're so good at making excuses about building our business that we drop our health. And exercise is designed to help you burn off the excess sugar that's in your body. If you're not sleeping at night, it could be because of all this stress and that, but it could be because you have too much sugar in the system and the body's not getting to the point that it can use it up. So when you exercise, you're setting your body up to use the excess sugar so that you actually go to bed at night. 3, don't eat late, right?
What is late?
Any 3 hours before bed, stop eating. If you are training though, I will tell you, having a protein shake or some casein at night before you go to bed is a valuable tool. Because what it'll do, it'll keep your muscle building during your evening hours.
Casein is milk protein.
If you do that.
Yeah.
Right. If you do that. I don't personally do that. I just do protein isolate at night before I go to bed. Warm shower. Super valuable as well. One of the things I'll tell you, Brad, that I've gotten into, do you know what the Sleep 8 bed is?
Oh yeah, I have one.
I have one too.
Fucking love it.
It's amazing.
Yeah, love it.
It's insane. It has changed the way I sleep.
Oh, it's night and day. And actually last night I woke up, I told you this before, but I woke up at 2 a.m. and couldn't sleep. It's my doing. Well, I violated your alcohol rule yesterday.
That's okay. You do it once in a while.
Yes, I do. So I actually got up and got out of bed and I went and I crashed in my guest room and fucking sweated all night.
Yeah.
Because I was used to being in my bed with a temperature controlled cover.
Right.
And it is night and day for me.
I'll tell you, that's probably the best biohack investment I've ever made.
They're expensive.
They're not cheap.
I can't remember what they are. $2-3 grand for a cover over your mattress.
Yeah.
But
Of a new one, I think it's like $5,000 if you get all the bells and whistles.
Damn. I'll tell you too, though. How do you feel about the metrics that are pulled from that versus any other tracking device?
They say, based on their studies, they're saying it's the most accurate, 99.9% as close to an EKG than anything else.
Crazy.
And I've tracked everything under the sun. Like I would wear a ring, a watch, a band, like everything on my head. Like I'd track to see which one's the most accurate. And I've literally seen which ones are the most accurate. And what people think are the most accurate are not what I've found to be the accurate ones. But I found this thing to be pretty powerful.
Day 8 sleep cover.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like it as a platform in general. Whole thing.
Yeah, I love it. I don't see myself sleeping without it.
What do you think the most expensive belief that entrepreneurs carry is?
Yeah, I need to build a business for my self-worth.
Mm.
I have seen that again and again and again. The size of their business is their identity.
Mm.
And that is so far from the truth, but so needed for their brain and their approval of addiction or addiction to approval of what they are and who they are. And I know a lot of guys right now are going to be like, oh, no, I don't need that. That's if I've triggered you, then I've probably made it.
I'm like, fuck, I need that. I'm fully aware.
It's been one of the most important things I've seen is, the bigger the business, the more important they think they are.
Well, okay. So yes. And relative to trying to accomplish an outcome, that makes total sense.
Sure.
Right? If my objective is to either generate the most revenue or serve the most people or serve my team, the more you do, the more you lead towards that goal. So what's the problem with it?
Well, the problem is that it's that the number gives you the identity. It's not doing the work that's the identity. It's the number that's the identity. I built a $5 million business. I got a $20 million business. I got a $100 million business. I got $1 million business. I only got 500,000. All of these things, right? Like that defines you rather than, I've got a business and I'm serving people doing what it is I love to do, period. There's no end afterwards. As long as we're chasing the destination, we lose ourselves in the process, right? And so the biggest thing in our brains that we're set up, if those in our amygdala, we keep chasing the destination. And unfortunately, it's another high, right? You hit $1 million business. Cool. Now what? I got to hit 2 million. Okay, great. After you do that, now what? It's 5 million.
There is no end.
There is no end.
Uh-huh.
So that single-handedly belief keeps you driving and driving and driving in the loop.
All right. So that's a great one to rewire. So what do you do about that?
We got to find out where you need it. Typically, I find with guys, it'll probably be with their dads.
Okay.
Because they think that my dad, I built this big business, or if I build this big business more than my dad or the same as my dad, or if my dad wasn't even in my life, right? I need to prove to him, fuck him, I can do this. And it's kind of this resented, angered state that we kind of move ourselves through in building a business. So it becomes this place where if that's the case, and again, that we're taking subjective individual experiences, trying to generalize it completely, right?
Yeah. That's life.
Yeah. But in this capacity, I would sit and say that, right? The first thing you got to do and sit and say that you actually don't need your dad's approval. Do the business because you love the business and you love the customers and you love that. But if the reality is you're building the business because you're looking for dad's approval, you're probably doing it for the wrong reasons.
Okay.
Which will eventually lead to health issues, family issues, destruction on the inside. Until you finally realize that you're doing something, you end up doing something that you love that's going to make a bigger difference. That's why a lot of entrepreneurs eventually lead into philanthropy.
So what I heard was the starting point of this is self-awareness.
Sure. Absolutely.
Right? Hey, I'm tied to this. I love the frame of outcome versus process, right? And if you're tied to the outcome all the time, then it's very hard to feel satisfied because you are inevitably, there's always something bigger, somebody better, et cetera. And there are very, very, very rare circumstances where you are the best.
Sure.
And even if you are, there's still another level. So the process has to be,
and you get it knocked off eventually anyways.
Yep. And so the process has to be what creates the sense of self,
Yeah.
right? So first step, identify it. I see that I've been seeking the approval of a parent throughout life, my entrepreneurial journey. Great. Then what?
You want me to take this and rewire it is literally what you want me to do. Okay. It won't be that simple because it'll be an event. Everyone has a different event that comes into place. But I'll give you a framework.
Great.
Okay. I'll give you a 4-step framework that you can use to take someone, and someone can say, okay, here's a 4-step process you can take to rewire literally anything you want to in your life. Okay. So what was the belief that would happen? So let's say your dad left you and you created this thing for approval, or your dad wasn't there and you created that for approval, or you created something that was there as a gap. Whatever that person did, you ask yourself, okay, what was the expectation that I had of that person?
Mm.
What was the belief that I had that this person should have done? They should have been there. They should have stayed. They should have came to my graduation. They should have came to the dance. They should, whatever it is you think, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they came. So that expectation, what's the anti-belief of that? Because there's a belief and then there's the anti-belief.
Meaning because they didn't come, it means XYZ.
Nope.
Oh.
It means that we, in our brains, most people don't realize this, but we have 2 sets of neurons. We have a neuron and then we have something called an anti-neuron that's actually in our brain. And that anti-neuron is what's controlling a lot of our thoughts. And so this anti-neuron is the opposite of that thing. So those nerves that come together, they create that belief. And if that belief is dad should have been there, okay, what's the opposite of that belief? Dad can do whatever he wants. Let's just say hypothetically. Okay, great. So what is the benefit to the belief that dad wasn't there? Okay, and if you did have the belief that you thought should be the anti-belief, if that happened, how would that have been a disservice to you? If you take that 4-step process, I'll simplify it here for you in a second, right? I'm just kind of explaining it, but I'll simplify it. You take that 4-step process, any event you can rewire.
Okay.
At any point in time. So you say, what's the event? What was the expected belief? What was the drawback of that belief? What's the anti-belief? And what's the benefit to you that the anti-belief didn't happen?
Oh, got it. So, okay. So let's use the dad example.
Sure.
Right? Dad didn't show up to my thing, right?
Great.
The belief is because he didn't show up to my thing, he doesn't care about me.
Sure.
And so the anti-belief is dad can do anything he wants. And then.
Oh, no, the belief that you said is he doesn't care about you.
Okay.
Right?
Got it.
That's the belief you created from it.
Mm-hmm.
So the anti-belief is dad does care about me.
Got it. Okay.
It's the complete opposite.
Yep.
So, okay, great. What was the benefit to you to have that belief that dad doesn't care about you? Made you an entrepreneur, made you step up, made you go to find your own way, made you create your own path, create the things you wanted to do in your life. You stand independently, stood up on your own 2 feet. You didn't need his formal approval, right?
Yep.
Okay, great. Now, the opposite of that belief is, okay, dad does care about me. Great. If your dad showed that he cared about you, how would that have been a drawback to you? Probably wouldn't have been as strong, probably wouldn't have been as rebellious to stand up on your own 2 feet. You would have been more weaker. You would have been more introverted. You wouldn't be doing a podcast like this. You probably would be more repressed in who you are.
Yep.
It's like, oh, now you look at it, it's like, oh, shit. And then you take any moment in any aspect of your life and you deconstruct it and it no longer has any power on you.
Interesting. So one of the things that I struggle with from that perspective is it's kind of exactly the situation, which is I'm on some level terrified that if I lose the intensity and the pressure that's driving me, I'm going to lose my ability to perform. So I kind of don't want to lose it.
For sure.
At the same time, I think for a lot of people, I don't feel this way, but I know a lot of people that it just fucking eats at them and they are miserable as a result.
Yeah.
Do you think that from an entrepreneurship perspective, you need to let go of those things?
I think you do. Not just an entrepreneurial perspective. I'll take it from the entrepreneurial health perspective. Right? Because there's the entrepreneur. We've been talking about the entrepreneur and look at me build, look at me build, look at me build. But what good are you building when you're dead? But what good are you building when your body's falling apart? That's the other side of it that we need to talk about in this discussion, right? Because we're talking about sleep and performance. But if by default, we need to control our environments, right? That's what made us become what we do. Great. It's fantastic. But then by default, we also need to learn to let go of that for our business to grow. Like we're talking about, this is beyond $1 million, right? You get to a certain point, you have to let go of the reins of the business, not start it, right? And you guys would know that as you're building 8, 9. I don't have a company that big, but if you're building a 10-figure business, you can't do everything. You got to let it go.
Yeah.
It's part of the journey of it. So I think that's what happens in the same way in life, is that we start with so many of our fears, and then eventually we have to let go of those fears to realize the present of where we're at. And the more we can do that, the actually healthier we'll end up being. It's not easy to digest. It's not easy to let go of the control. It makes you uncomfortable.
Yes. And I also hold the belief that the people that change the world the most are rarely balanced and are often perceived to be neurotic and super intense. Now, and I admire and respect those people. Whether I would trade my life for theirs is another question.
Sure.
But when we look at kind of whether or not entrepreneurs need something or it serves them to do something, I have mixed feelings about it, because I think that it really depends on the outcome that you're after. And I think that, you look at, the obvious example today is Elon Musk.
Sure.
Right. And there's no semblance of balance in Elon's life, right? He is working all the time and on multiple things. And I don't think that he would have the capacity to change the world the way that he is or has if he wasn't doing that. I don't know if it's good or bad, but
I think he's an N of one, right?
Yeah,
he is an N
that's
of one.
Probably true too.
And the people who we're talking about here in this conversation is, how do I live a life, grow successfully, raise a family, have a family, live the life that I want to in that capacity? I think he's an N of one, and I don't think, I don't think any rewiring is going to get him off of the other path. But I will tell you, an inspired brain that is focused, disciplined, so directed, that has a mission that's grander than itself, those people are dedicated. Those people are very, very lasered in what they're doing, and they take every moment of their life and they focus all that energy right into the front of their brain, and they go after that. And if you can go after that, I feel, though, from the studies, everything I've seen, I feel that you have much more continuity in your life. And because of that, the world around you kind of forms around you. It all comes down to the frequency you want to live at. And the frequency is, do you want to be someone that's changing the world, or do you want to be someone that's living your life? And depending on that, then you get to choose the frequency you're playing, I think.
You made it this far, which probably means that you're an entrepreneur, which probably means that you're accepting credit cards and maybe ACH payments. Beyond the fact that we can do a rate review to save you money, beyond the fact that we give you dedicated account reps, world-class customer service, world-class technology, and can actually optimize the way you accept payments online, our average client saves a year by working with us. If you want to find out how and get a free rate review from us, check us out at epd.com/BAM. So you've worked with, hundreds of thousands of people. Is there a pattern that you see before people get to the place of being willing to make a change?
Yeah. It's a great question. You're good at this. It's like you've done this once or twice. The pattern that I see often enough is success. Because what's going to happen is that they're going to hit this level of success and they don't see it. They're going to be on the high of success and their world is going to crash. Their world is going to crash in about 18 months and they don't see it yet. But it's coming because their emotions are so elated, their dopamine is so high, it's got to come down. And that's when they sit and realize that people are more apt to take action because of the things that they lost than actually getting to grow where they want to go.
Carrot stick.
Yeah, it is a carrot stick thing, but the difference is, if you've made $10 million and you've lost it, you know that you can do it, but you can't get yourself back up to it because you're stuck in resentment. You're stuck in emotion. Someone who's never made $10 million doesn't even know what that feels like. It's a fantasy, right? So that person who's made it and crashes is much more likely to make a change than someone who's looking to get there for the first time.
Ooh, that's interesting and terrifying and also kind of exciting. So basically what I heard was that your capacity to make change, the pattern that you've seen is that the capacity to make change is often driven by a success then failure.
Yeah.
because you have a data point that tells you can do it again.
Yeah.
Well, that's super interesting.
And then what happens is that they get stuck, right? So someone who builds this thing, they get stuck, they get angry, they get resentful to themselves or other people, they get frustrated with who they are, and they can't get themselves past it. They're like, why am I not getting past this? 2 million, 3 million, 5 million? And they don't realize that wealth has a frequency. Your business has a frequency because you have a frequency. And there'll be a strategy for you not to make more money. People don't realize there's a strategy in people not making more money. This is where the rewiring gets interesting, because people are like, oh, I want to get back up to 10 million. No, you don't, because if you did, you would have already done it.
You'd do it. Yeah. So two things. One, I've done a fair amount of little bit of endurance athletic stuff, and many, many hours of exercise. And I have so much more respect and admiration for the person that gets off the couch and gets himself to run their first mile than I do for the person that goes from 50 to 60 miles or 60 to 100 miles, because the 60 to 100 or the marathon to ultra marathon has a lot of data points indicating that they can do it.
Sure.
The person that's never done anything has no data points supporting this idea that they can do it. That is worth noting for anybody that's out there thinking, I've never done this thing before. You need to find examples and just model it and just take action towards it. Two, you said something that that reminded me of something I've heard you say, which is business plateaus aren't tactical, they're emotional.
Mm-hmm.
And you framed it a different way just now, which is if you wanted to be at 10 million, you'd be at 10 million. How does the emotional element play into that?
Yeah, there's two parts of it, right? I think there's not the how to, because you can find the how to. So if you're smart enough to build $1 million business, you're smart enough to build a 5 or 10 million. But you have your own set of parameters. What does it mean to you if you build a $10 million business? Are you more successful? Are you bigger? The emotional side of that becomes a fantasy, or it becomes an identity. And then you chase it endlessly, or you actually run from it and you pretend like that's what you want. And when you pretend, it becomes this thing that you tell everybody, but internally it's creating tension and turmoil within you. So we have a thermostat, right? And there's a lot of personal development over the years, but what I found is the internal resentments, the internal levels of resentment leads to resistance. So if you resent something about yourself, then you create resistance of that coming into your life. If your brain isn't wired to get to 10 million and it's comfortable at 2 million, you will stay at 2 million and you will force your way to 10 million. What I do in my rewired mind is I take you through the steps to literally take you from wherever you are, 2 million to 10 million, so that we wire your brain to where you want to go, right? So many people have said over the years, you Dr. Rewire, okay, rewire my past, rewire where I'm at. That's one part of it. But the other part of it is, why don't we just wire your brain to where you want to go and build that framework in the brain? Because we can. It's all thoughts. It's all literally neural connections that we're building. If we can rewire past ones, why don't we build new ones? Right? Like the sleep, the diet, the exercise, the L-theanine, all the stuff we're thinking, we're just wiring new neurons that are coming together. So if we just wire neurons towards a connection point of where we want to go and remove all the emotions getting ourselves there, then we build that. We build our future reality from an emotion that's clear.
I have a general framework that I think about often that's a little frustrating, which is that it's very hard to skip levels. And what I mean by that is at a specific level that you're at, you have normalized life as it is. And you say, this is what I expect out of life. And you just said, if you're at 2 million or 3 million or 10, you normalize that level and you normalize the things around it. And if you want $1 billion company, it's many levels away.
100%.
And so the frustration for me is that the current belief I hold is very often you have to get to the next place, and you can't just get there and move to the next one after that. You have to get there and normalize it.
Yes.
And you have to say, hey, this is now what is acceptable to me. This is my normal life. But my challenge with that is that it's very easy to lose the gratitude and the grandeur and the sparkles and allure of that next level. Because at the one time, and maybe this is just a question of the process versus the outcome, right? But initially you're like, oh, I can't wait till I get to this place, right? And when I get to this place, but then you get there and you have to normalize it if you want to go past it. That's how I look at it, right? But inside of normalizing it, it feels normal and not exciting anymore. And my challenge is that I hear people, and I don't know, maybe this is all fluffy bullshit, but I don't think so. I think there are people that are like this, that somehow maintain that childish ambition and excitement and allure of that place and the gratitude with it while they normalize and move to the next place.
I think you can. I think you definitely can. And that's where it kind of circles back to the person's DNA and their intention of the business. If the intention and the DNA is designed that way, and the intention of the business is to so lovingly serve that client, so lovingly appreciate the process you're on, then you're not worrying about the destination you're going. What happens in the brain is most people think dopamine is the reward. It's not the reward. Dopamine is the distance between now to the reward. It's the gap. So if you're from 0 to 500,000, the dopamine is from 0 to 500,000. At 500,000, that dopamine now starts to level off. So that becomes normalized. It's no longer exciting, completely accurate, right? So then what do we say? We said, okay, now we got to normalize this to get back up to the next point. And then it's 750 or a million, 10 million, whatever it is, a number. It's irrelative, right? If we're talking about above a million, 2 million. Okay, that's now normal. 2 million, that's what I make. 5 million, that's normal. That's what I make. What do you mean we did 4.8 million? That's crazy. We're a $5 million. And so that becomes that normal rate. You're completely right. But achieving it is not as important as managing it. Managing it is the emotional game. If not, we achieve it once, then we drop back down. That's where the rewiring game, that's where we start understanding the neuroscience of business and entrepreneurship. We realize, oh, great, you have a $10 million company. Great. Are you managing a $10 million company? Is it working efficiently? Is it normalized at that level before you scale it to the next level, right? And a lot of business, the business scaling experts will speak to that. But if I speak to it from the emotional side, it's because the emotions are mismanaged, which is what creates the chaos in the company. Managing emotions, you manage that level in the company.
So a lot of this I look at as, great advice and self-awareness and mindset. And the question is, where does mindset advice fall short?
It doesn't take into neurology. It just is saying meditate, be happy, do what makes you feel good. That's not true. Rewiring is very different. Rewiring is sometimes really fucking uncomfortable. Rewiring is really looking at yourself in the mirror and saying, okay, what is my real belief here? And you've said it so many times, which tells me that you've done so much work on yourself. Is like my current belief. You know how many people don't use that language?
I think language is incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
And words matter is what I like to say inside the company, and people talk shit about it endlessly. But I really think that the words that you choose to use, you're telling yourself that.
100%.
And if you're not careful about what you say, you're going to end up believing some weird shit.
Yeah. You control your brain. It's not a random, you control your thoughts and, just thoughts, vibrations. I'm not speaking of that. I'm speaking about, when you look at your brain, we know that the brain, the neurotransmitters, the energy that comes off the brain, the frequency that you are all interconnected and all correlated with your DNA. And so in order to optimize your life as an entrepreneur, you have to optimize yourself with your code, with your specific thing, with your health, your diet, your sleep, all of these things. If you want to build the company that you say you do at the level you do, then those things have to get optimized because your energy dictates your company's energy. Your emotions dictate how you lead the company. Your emotions, and that dictate how everything is. Most mindset is about just thinking positive. I'm not interested in thinking positive. Positive thinking leads to depression. I'm not interested in that. I'm not interested in just feeding a bunch of hype to people that has no scientific background, right? When we do our programs, we put EEGs on people's heads. And we see their brain age, what's called their P300 scores, drop by an average of 18 years in that room. So that means their brains are literally firing that much faster by the end of the program. And when you start to get people's brains firing faster, they're making better decisions. That means they're no longer stuck in their amygdala. They're actually moving from the prefrontal cortex, which is now moving the brain in a path that's helping them get greater clarity, better decision-making, better sleep, better performance, the whole capacity.
You've used the term frequency several times, which on a lot of levels makes me want to puke. Largely because I live in Austin. There are a bunch of fucking woo hippie bullshit people here. Can you ground the word frequency into some sort of scientific reality for me?
Well, it's all, and I will go woo-woo to bring it back to reality. How about that?
Okay, let's do it.
So people think of that word as this random vibrational woo-woo term, but frequency in itself is, we all are an energetic frequency. Right? And that comes from an emotion. We know this. Your neurotransmitters dictate this. When we look at alpha waves, gamma waves in the brain, that is a frequency.
Yeah.
Yes, there are people who are woo-wooing that word, but science is also showing that our brain frequency that we're putting out and emitting is completely accurate as well. So, for example, yesterday I'm staying at the W here in Austin, and it's downstairs right underneath the hotel. There's a pool party going on, right? At the W. And I was like,
W gets wild like that.
Oh my God. I was like, I walked in at 2:00. I was like, where do I want to go? My dopamine receptor started to hit. I'm like, I want to go downstairs. Nope. I was like, but all I could hear is the I was like, I want to go down. I want to go down. So I literally have to put on alpha music, alpha waves in my room to drown it out so I can get a bunch of work done. And I did, right? So the environment that you surround yourself as a frequency, because you're emitting also a frequency. We know this. This is not the electromagnetic frequency that comes off of you is a fact. It's not just this, hippie culture type thing. So there is truth to and the reason I say that is because the greater the frequency you are connected to and you emit off of your brain, the greater emotional coherence you have.
Say more about that.
Whatever's going on in the brain, the emotional coherence that's coming off of that. So if your brain is in a lower frequency, it's emotional, it's angry, it's frustrated. If you ever read Power versus Force?
No.
You should read it. It's a good book. It's written Richard Dawkins or David Hawkins. I always mix those two, but my dyslexia takes me there, right? But great book. But he talks about emotions have a vibrational frequency. He measured it, and he showed these frequencies. Most people are walking around in emotions of guilt and shame, or they're walking in anger and resentment, and you can see it. You can see it. And literally that's the vibration that they are at. Their brain is emitting that out of their brain. When we start getting into beta waves and alpha waves, theta waves, delta waves, and rarely gamma waves, we start to realize that people who are stuck in stress are in beta waves. That's a frequency.
Yeah.
That's an absolute frequency. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally. So many years ago, we brought on a client that was the person that, spacing on his name, but the person that popularized binaural beats.
Sure.
And the fundamental premise of binaural beats, for anybody that hasn't explored this, is exactly what we're talking about, which is they are a tone that is a specific frequency. And when you listen to it, and basically you have to have it in stereo, you have to have headphones on, right? And your brain will match the frequency of the beat.
Yep.
So you can put specific binaural beats in, and typically they're like some weird tone, and they'll mask it with, a lot of people will mask it these days with rain or music or something else. But that tone will actually put your brain into that state.
Yeah.
And I would challenge, and I'm saying this as a tremendously structured, pragmatic, logical individual. I would challenge anybody to find one of those and pick the extreme that they're not normally doing and listen to it and argue that point. And one of the things that I love about things like this that have data behind them is something like this binaural beats structure, which is the frequency conversation.
Yep, absolutely.
You can't, I say this about Tony Robbins quite often, you can't have a platform like that or have something like this that sells for decades if there isn't something behind it.
Sure.
You just can't be a scam for 50 years. with humanity. Unless you're like, the FDA or something.
Whole different conversation. We're going to stay away from for now, at least.
Listen, if Dave was sitting here with us, he would be on board with me.
Absolutely, he would.
Asprey will be on at some point, but I bring him up because you're at his conference speaking today. But I like that. I like the idea of tacking frequency onto that. I think that's a really good way to explain it. Also, not to be confused with the people that I deliberately threw under the bus just now, which are the people that are using it totally erroneously and no grounding in reality.
There's a lot of disassociation in, people classify me in the personal development space, right, Brad? And I personally, I'm not. I'm a doctor. I'm a clinician. I look at things from a very scientific lens. But I've also had the fortune of being Indian, of growing up with all of these ancient traditions, of growing up and understanding, and I've gone through the world and understanding the neurology and neuroscience and physiology to incorporate all of this to understand now, saying, okay, how do we take this and put this into a process to get greater, not just performance, but health and vitality, right? Because, Tony is probably the greatest peak performance trainer that is out there on the planet.
I agree.
Right? He's probably the greatest peak performance trainer. I'm not that. I'm not that guy. Right? I'm the guy that says, you know what? How do we optimize from the state of who we are? How do we optimize ourselves to sit and say that, it's a merger of who you are ultimately so that you can be the highest level of yourself. That could be frequency, that could be energy, that could be your work, your health, all of it. How do we incorporate that into one space? And I call that rewiring, as to circle that same thing, is that how do you rewire your life to be the ultimate version of yourself rather than just perform better? Does that make sense?
Totally. So what is a belief that you've held personally that you've had to rewire and change?
Yeah, there's so many. Oh my God. I am my greatest student. I tell you what, when I was going through my divorce, I had created a belief in my brain. I lost every dime I had, everything I had. I was doing this rewiring stuff with patients. I mean, I built the largest practice in the world at one point. I was seeing 1,250 people a week. It's a lot of people.
Okay, hold on. How?
It was efficient as hell. I was an entrepreneur in a doctor's coat.
But I mean, are you? This has to be remote to see 12. You're seeing 1,250 people a week.
I had like a Portillo's line out the door.
Crazy.
It was crazy.
That's hundreds of people a day.
200 to 300 people a day.
For 15 minutes? 4 minutes?
My time with them was a minute.
That's crazy.
It was super fast. It was built on efficiencies. But the energy in that office was crazy. Like I would play EDM music in it. I'd play EDM.
Do you have supporting staff talking to him for more? Okay. Supporting staff talking to him for more than that.
Yeah,
so you would kind of come in for a minute and talk to
what
people.
I need to do, get what I need to get done. And then, but it was the whole thing was an efficient system. Right. And, we had people out the door. My dad came one time and he was watching. He's like, "What the hell are you doing?" I said, "I don't know, Dad." I was like, I literally built this I was seeing that many people in a year.
Crazy.
It was crazy. I was 26 years old. 26 years old. But in it, what I learned was all these systems about business, all these tools. But then as time progressed, I started realizing that people's ailments weren't in their body, it was in their heads. And as a student of studying functional medicine, functional neurology, all these different disciplines, I started asking these different questions, seeing if I can get their brains to wire differently. And I started helping people with things like irritable bowel disease and Crohn's disease and diabetes and crazy things that are not supposed to get any better. They now go away. But then for me, I go through a brutal divorce because I hit my high and then I crashed. I'm no different. I couldn't see the other side and I needed to rewire me more than anyone else. And I lost every dime I had, but I'd built this belief in my brain that I could have love or money, but not both. And
is that why you got divorced?
No, that was from the divorce.
Got it.
It could have been there before, but I think it was from the divorce.
So rude.
It's true though. But it was from that space, and I had to go rewire. That's where I started rewiring myself. And 2 days later, I go make $100,000. I'd made any money in 9 months. 2 days later, I go make $140,000. 2 days later, I make another $80,000. I was like, "There's something to this."
There is something to that, and I have a very good friend in town, Jesse Elder, and do you know Jesse?
I know the name. I don't know him personally, of course.
Let's get some time with him this week. You'll like him. Yeah, he's great. He told me years ago, he was like, I had he had this attachment to money.
Yeah.
And he was uncomfortable with his attachment to money because it was security for him.
Yeah.
And he said, you know what? I need to get rid of this. So I'm going to spend every dollar I make every month. I'm going to go to zero, bank account to zero every month. And he said the next month I had a $340,000 month. And I was at lunch with him. I remember it vividly. I'm in Austin, this years ago. And I was like, Jesus, dude, it is hard to spend $340,000 in a month. And he goes, no, it's not. And at first I thought that was hilarious. But I also, one of the points of recognition there to validate your point is when you do that kind of thing, the belief that it creates for you has to help rewire your internal structure.
It does. It does. It changes my structure. It changes, I was so angry. I was so resentful at my ex and lawyers and all this stuff that I created this resentment, right? And I had the saying that whatever you resent, you resist.
Mm-hmm.
So I resented money. So therefore I resented taking myself to that level. And I stopped money from coming in. I strategically put it away. I do have this belief now after working with all these people and seeing the realities of it is that whatever you have in your life is not because of the why that you want it. And the reason you don't have what you want is more the why not rather than the why.
Say more.
So everybody will say, "Oh, you got to know your why. It's your family, your kids, your business, all the shit everyone says. I know my why. I read the book. Great. But if you want a $10 million business,
what's preventing it?
What's the why not?
Yeah.
Let's go rewire the why not so that you get to a $10 million business.
Well,
it's so strategic and pragmatic if you think about it.
Yeah.
And that when I started doing that, and that's what the work I do now more so. It's like, you want to go there, let's get the why nots out of the way and then just go there.
What do you do when you identify the why not and you're like, yeah, that's a logical fucking reason. That's why I don't do it.
But it's not logical. It's a belief. Every logic stems in a belief from the past. And once we find that and you eliminate that, right? It's not a matter of, I'm not rewiring it to be good.
Yeah.
I'm not rewiring it to be bad. I'm just saying whatever beliefs we hold are delusions, both good or bad. So if we eliminate them and what we do is we transcend to get that belief completely, it no longer has a barrier on us.
Yeah, it's the famous Henry Ford quote: "Whether you believe you can or you believe you can't."
You're right.
Dr. Rewire, I love hanging out, man. It was a great conversation. Where do you want to point people?
Yeah, I mean, go to drrewire.com, whatever is there that, I always tell people, get your code. Whatever you're doing in your life, from all of my experience, all my years, and all the studying I've done, I would tell you that the most important thing you could do is get your code. I'll give you just a quick story. I used to be very, got to do this, got to go after it, all that type of mentality, very that tone. And my daughter, she would follow my workout regime, right? You and I would go out partying all night, or we'd go somewhere and we'd be out all night and then we'd be in the gym first thing in the morning, right? That's what we do. That's what we do. And so I was training my daughter and she's doing the same protocols I am. She's biohacking, she's cold plunging, she's fasting, doing all this stuff. And I'm watching my 20-year-old daughter just start to gain more weight. And I'm like, this is really weird. And not fat weight, just like she was just, and it happened. She was working out, and my daughter is like us. She's disciplined, does what she's told. She doesn't drink. She's not that kid. And I did her DNA test, and I got it back, and I said, "Stop. We're changing everything." I said, "We're not doing your protocol this way." And she's like, "What do you mean?" I said, "This protocol works for me, not you." So I said, "You're going to eat 6 times a day. You're going to stop fasting. You're going to stop working out every day. I only want you to lift weights 2 or maybe 3 days a week, full body. Go in there. Don't overstress it. I want you to do walking twice a day for 20 minutes. And I want you to sleep instead of 9 hours. I want you to sleep 7.5, 8 hours." In 8 weeks, she lost 18 pounds. Not of fat, inflammation.
Oh, shit.
Because this is why I say this, is that all fat equals inflammation. If there's any fat on your body, it's inflammation on the system. So all stress equals fat, all fat equals inflammation. So the more we get our code to realize, oh, maybe this is how I should biohack, maybe how I should be healthy, then it's different. You and I could have a completely different set. You could stay up till 3 a.m. potentially and be fine with it. I sure as hell can't. So I'm going to work on my system to optimize my life. You should work on yours on your own. So I say, get your code, and then take the step from there.
I love that, man. Love that. Well, let's get some more time this week to hang out, dude. I appreciate you coming to the studio.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for checking out this episode of Beyond a Million. If you liked the podcast, you should probably click the bell and subscribe, and maybe leave a comment below. That helps other people find us and keeps this flywheel going. And the more people that find us, the better guests that we can get on the show. So if you could take 30 seconds to do those things, it would be amazing.